Hi, everyone. It's been a while since we've seen you. Welcome to another episode of Stuck in the Middle.
Where we ain't young, but we ain't dead yet.
I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We have so much to be grateful for and thankful for. And tonight we are thankful for our guest, Tomas Pacheco, who is a friend of ours, and to continue on with our series that we didn't know we were going to do a series. We call everything a series.
But it is our series because we're the CEOs of this group.
Yeah,
so
there you go, yes.
Yeah. So it's about the prison system being incarcerated.
Yes, and if any of you have not listened to the two episodes that we aired with our friend Zach, who was on the inside of the prison system as a prisoner, they're very, very good episodes, and you really do want to listen. But we wanted to get a different perspective and speak with somebody that worked in the prison system as a guard, or what was your role in the prison system?
Tell us what you did.
Well, I was in the prison system for a total of about 10 years. I was a supervisor for most of it, and my last 5 years I was a captain. So, and I was just making sure the ship ran smooth.
Okay, so as a captain, how many people did you oversee? Like, were you overseeing the entire prison, a section of the prison? How many guards? How does that work?
We averaged about 22 guards to cover a shift.
Oh, wow.
And during the week, you had, all admin staff was there, the warden and everyone. But on the weekends, I was in charge of everything. Making sure everything ran smooth and we had no incidents.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And you worked in the state prison system?
Yes, it was state.
Okay.
Moorhaven. It's a private company, but state owned.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Moorhaven, and then you said earlier, I think, a stint down in Fort Lauderdale?
It was Pompano, the ICE facility. It's a Broward Transition Center. It was, basically dealt with residents that came, or immigrants that came in. They caught them, we brought them there, and we supervised them.
Oh, okay. I don't know why when I was thinking ICE, I was thinking of like drugs and that. What is that unit called? Not SWAT.
I know you're talking about that.
The other unit?
The DEA.
DEA. That's what I was thinking. ICE, DEA. Yeah. Initials. I get all my initials confused.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Totally.
But ICE deals with the immigration.
Okay. Well, we're going to have you back and talk about that for sure.
Yeah, especially right now, right? That's such a hot topic. That's a whole nother topic for another day. So, yes.
Yes. Well, go ahead, Tracy. You've got some questions. I have some. So
I just want
this off.
Okay. Mainly we heard, Zach's perspective, and again, that was in the federal system, and he made it very clear that federal and state were kind of completely different systems in a way. So from your perspective, you're no longer working in that environment. So when I refer to it as it's because you're not actively working in that profession anymore. No. But what was probably your biggest challenge that you had being in the roles that you had in the prison system as an employee, would you say?
Towards the end, it was staffing. They had a big shortage of staff, and it was every day coming in, start shift, it's like playing chess, trying to figure out how I'm going to run staff, where to post certain officers, and honestly, it was we also had a lack of male staff. I would have 20 officers and 11 or 12 of them be female, and that was a big problem, and not because a female can't handle the role, it's just, you need, manpower.
Yes, we
Truly,
both agree. And that was a question. And actually, Zach brought it up about, he didn't feel that females should work in an all-male prison. I totally agree with that. Some people may not. That's just our opinions. How do you feel about the females working in a male prison?
Depends. I mean, I've had females who were better officers than a lot of males. You know, they weren't scared. You know,
They were rock solid.
they could run a dorm and things like that. But as far as like, say, if an incident were to happen, you know, I mean, yes, women are strong, but I can't see a female wrestling a 250-pound inmate. You know,
Exactly.
so I kind of prefer to have more males because
just by sheer intimidation. I mean, right.
intimidation, yeah, things like that, and you know, you don't want women to get hurt trying to fight men. You know, so
Yes.
Of course.
you
Was
know,
it an all-male prison where you were?
It was an all-male prison.
All male. Did you have like many incidents where did you get word in advance that something might be going down in the lunchroom or whatever you call? I don't know what you call it. The
Cafeteria.
cafeteria.
They used to eat in the dorms, but yeah, a lot of times
You kind of knew something might be getting ready to brew.
they would let us know. You know, we had them people, you know, like Cap, you know, something's gonna go down, or you know, they would let you know. So you kind of had a word, and you kind of prepare for that type of stuff. So.
Sure.
Did you?
But we did have a lot of incidents, yes.
You did.
Well, I want to go back to the female guards and all. Did you see where they were, it's not all of them, but some of them do become romantically involved with some of the inmates, because it does happen.
Yeah, unfortunately we had a lot of female staff get involved with inmates, and also a lot of just staff, period. You had kitchen workers, you know, teachers, just women, you know, anywhere there were women, there was always that possibility of something happening.
And
You know.
I don't know of any that ever turned out good on that end. There was somebody from Clewiston that didn't turn out very well. She married him. It ended up, they killed somebody here in Clewiston because he got involved in drugs and took off, and he took his own life. And then I had a family member that worked in Belglade when the Belglade prison was there. Was it GCI, right? GCI back in the day, and she, you know,
got
involved with the prisoner and married him, and that didn't end well either. So I've never heard any success stories there. Do you know any?
I've known a couple. They're still married, so
Yeah.
Okay.
it happens, you know.
It does.
They found love. I mean, obviously it's in the wrong place, but
They found love in the
they found
prison.
love, and they're still together. But you know, it's frowned upon as a correctional officer. You know, you don't want to see that.
You don't encourage.
Well, I
Don't
can see
encourage.
how it could happen, because I can see as a person that's incarcerated, you're lonely and you're dying for just a relationship in general, I would feel. And as a woman working, you're getting all of this attention and positive attention because they're there to give it to you. So I could definitely see how it could happen, and I do think that there are probably some very legitimate relationships that do come out of it, but there's also the fact of that there could be an ulterior motive. It would be very hard to know the difference. You know what I mean?
Well,
because
that's
of that.
the thing. Are you being manipulated?
That's what it is.
And
A lot of times they tell you what you want to hear, because
Uh-huh.
a lot of these guys, they don't have any money, and I've escorted an officer off the compound because she was from her credit card giving the inmate money on his canteen. So she was giving him money using her credit card, and when it popped up who was giving him the money,
You're gone.
there's a name, like,
Yep.
you know, the inspector called, hey, do you know this officer, blah blah blah. I said, yeah, she's actually working on shift right now. I said let me walk her out.
I just thought of another question about that, because I was also told that drugs and money are absolutely no object in prison. Like that the rumor is there are more drugs in prison sometimes than outside of prison. Would you say that's true or false, or you don't know?
Are the same.
Well, when I first was started where I was at, it was there, but it wasn't bad. But Jill left, came back, another company took over for a while. It was still good. Then Jill came back, and they changed the type of inmate you can, people with longer sentences and psych levels, and it just got out of hand, really, and these guys giving these officers, paying officers money or having their family, bringing stuff in, and there's a lot in there, but I would say there's still more on the street, but
Okay.
there's plenty in
there's
there.
plenty there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a grandmother arrested because she was bringing stuff in for her grandson, and
Oh, wow.
a girlfriend
Sad.
bringing stuff in for her boyfriend, and it's just.
How do people smuggle things in? Because I'm sure security's pretty tight just to get through the door. I would think.
Yeah, how do they come in?
How do women bring it in? They inside of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's what yeah.
They don't have any type of X-ray capability to X-ray in that area, because that would be a big area. Well, that didn't sound right.
Yeah.
Wait
Maybe some bigger than others. I don't know, but no, you know what I mean.
I get what you're saying, but we can't X-ray them. We have metal detectors that can detect that, but there's always ways around it.
Yeah.
I've found cell phones about that big where they order them from China, and you can't really track them in the metal detectors because a cell phone is literally the size of a chapstick. So.
Wow.
Crazy.
There's loopholes in the system where you catch an inmate talking on a little cell phone about that big. It's got a headphone jack, so they got the headphones plugged in and they're talking. But it's hard to tell because you always see them on the radios, but they'll tape the phone on the back of the radio, and you think they're just singing the song, but really they're on their phone. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I mean, I've had it's actually a bitter girlfriend call the facility, say, hey, this inmate, he has a cell phone on him. And I'm talking to him right now. He's in this dorm and told me this bump.
Oh,
God.
that was messy.
So she stayed on the phone with him. I went in the dorm, and when I walked in the dorm, there was an officer in there, giving a speech to these inmates about, they're cleaning, doing for, dorm inspection. And I walked right to the inmate, and he was on his phone, and I took the phone, and he has a little phone taped to the back of the radio.
Do you feel like that you had a good relationship with the inmates for the most part, or like how could you get them to stay in line for your shift or for your officer's shift? What would you do to not let them get out of control?
A lot of them, they like consistency. If you're the same always, they respect that. A lot of them don't like change. There's a lot of officers come in, they'll start out one way, and then they'll try to switch it up when they get around another officer and try to act like a tough guy and things like that. But I've always been consistent. I've always been straightforward with them. If I tell them something's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. I used to tell them all the lie. I gain nothing by lying to you. So if I tell you I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it, or I expect something out of you, get it done. And it's just the way it is, and they like that, and I always, like I said, they always kept it real with them, So.
And they respected you,
And they
so it's a
respected
matter
that,
of respect.
Correct. And there's also where if I had to go hands on, I went hands on too. They respect that too. A lot of them, they want to take it that far. So, but
did you find a lot of gang activities, or did you find is it kind of an unspoken thing in the prison system with the prisoners where they get an automatic kind of again, I'm only going back. I keep saying Zach. Sorry, Zach. But that's the only person.
That's the only thing we
yeah.
know. To compare to, even though it's kind of apples and oranges, really, with state and federal.
But I think human behavior is human behavior. You're going to automatically align, right? How did it work in the States? Was it kind of the same thing? Like they had their car, as Zach called it, which was your kind of, if you were from Florida, or if you were Hispanic, or if you were African American, you went to that car, basically. But now he said Florida trumped all the races.
Because we're like a melting pot, right?
Yeah.
So it was different races, but a lot of times it was divided up, with different races and whether it be Puerto Ricans or Haitian or African American or whatever, Hispanic, whatever it is. But was it that way in the state prison?
Yes. I had an experience where I went to Oklahoma, and there's a riot that happened there. I went to the riot, and when I got there, it was all segregated. Black with blacks, Hispanic with Hispanic, white with white. You didn't mix them up. But in Florida, you see that more where, like you said, it's a melting pot. But they do have gangs where people are affiliated. They kind of stick together. Unfortunately, you gotta stick to your own in prison. I mean, you know, Hispanics have to stick with Hispanics, and you know, blacks stick with blacks.
Because you get in trouble if you don't, I guess. And I mean, you almost look like a sellout, right?
Kind of, yeah, like like you're switching out or something like that. And it's just, unfortunately, people are forced to be segregated. You know, but you know, they still intermingled a lot. But when it came down to certain situations,
you went rank with
they went with their own, yeah.
With your team. Or
he did say too that the only exception and where they would mingle is when they went to church, and that when they went to the church service, that they knew that nobody caused any ruckus, nothing, and everybody could kind of be together. Was it that way in the state prison as far as the church goes?
Yeah, when they had religious services, they would all be in there together, but in reality, a lot of times they were having meetings.
Oh.
Yeah, they were having their meetings. They were planning things. They just used the church as a cover-up a lot of times.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, a lot did go for the religious services, but for the most part, a lot of them were having meetings. So.
Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting take, I find.
Yes.
Right?
Now, what level of security, what types of prisoners, like in other words, was it were murderers in there? Was it just truly like small time crime people?
Drug dealers?
It was minimum medium security.
Which means what? Tell us about the.
We didn't have people there. They didn't have people that had life sentences. But they had people there who had 15 years or less. They try to keep it that way. Some will sneak in the system. They have more than 15 years, but and it was always try to stay under 15.
I mean, were there murderers in there?
There were people who killed somebody and.
Like, what were the main crimes you always saw? I mean, not always, but what were most of the crimes for?
The majority were drug dealers, a lot of pedophiles, and just a lot of robbery, armed robbery, and things like that.
Theft,
a lot of violent crimes, but nothing like murder.
Which brings me back to, because this we found very interesting, because it was one of our misconceptions about sex offenders, or pedophiles, that we've always heard, always being on the outside, that you do that and you go to prison, you're gonna be raped, you're gonna they're gonna come for you. Now in the federal prison, and it was called Chomo or something.
Chomo, yeah.
Chomo, am I right?
Yeah, child molester, we call them Chomo.
And that you could not touch them, because if you did, you got 5 years added to your sentence. Was it that way in the state prison? Or what was the
Well, basically,
deal?
a lot of times the Chomos were just targets. You come in the dorm, they'll call home, hey, they have an inmate number, look him up. They look him up, find out, oh, he's a child molester, and then they start robbing them,
So they did not leave them alone.
They would beat them up. They'd assault them.
They go after them.
Yeah, they go after them. So I mean,
Okay.
yeah, they can get time, but a lot of times they're not gonna tell who beat them up.
So it's a
because
right.
it's Florida. Yeah, they'll tell. Yeah, I'll tell you, but you get me transferred. You transfer them to another facility. Guess what? One of these guys in his dorm, in the same dorm, gets transferred to that facility. He gets to say, oh, I know this guy. He's a Chomo, and he snitched at the last facility.
So it just kind of...
It follows them. Yeah, it'll follow them. So
right.
a lot of times these guys, they'll get off the bus, they'll transfer them to Moorhaven. They get off the bus. A lot of them will be like, I need to check in, which is basically protective custody, because they see someone else on the bus that
they already
they
know.
knew the situation. Yeah, so yeah, a lot of Chomos, they don't have it easy.
Okay, well.
And being a snitch, I'm sure they don't. If you're a snitch,
it's not good either.
That's not good either, right?
No, they get same thing, same scenario. They snitch at one facility, they get transferred out to another one. It follows them. Yeah, I mean, I've had a situation where a guy snitched years ago, and the guy got to the facility and he's like, I remember you, and you beat him up, and it followed him. It's like 6 years.
Okay, my question about that, about the fighting. Does every inmate, or maybe not everyone, a lot of them have weapons?
They make weapons, yes. I found a lot of shanks.
Shanks.
I found a lot, yeah.
And Zach talked about they tie a string to it and keep it on them, so if it gets loose, somebody can't grab it or whatever, that they can keep that, right?
Yeah, well, they tie usually these shirts or shoelaces. They get creative in there, but a lot of times it's, I mean, sounds vulgar, but when they stab somebody and they get blood on them, it won't slip out of your hand.
No, it is
And,
what it is. Yeah.
And that's, yeah, they tie it to their hands, and yeah, that's what exactly is.
But now that these are all the extreme. I mean, we're talking about extreme. It wasn't like that on a daily basis. Every day you went to work, where it was like somebody was like.
Getting
We always
shanked?
found them. No, they weren't always getting shanked. I mean, it happened a lot. I mean, it started happening a lot towards the tail end of my, time there. Just because they brought in a different type of psych level inmate, which they were more the crazier ones.
Yes.
No,
So
right.
and it started happening more frequently. So now we're finding a lot of shanks.
See, that's
Now, did they at the prison where you worked? Did they sleep in like a dorm? I mean, like in a cell with two people, or like in one of those big rooms with bunk beds everywhere?
We had two open. We call them open dorms like that. They were just open like that, where you had 60 bunks in the dorm, and then we had 2 units where there were 2-man cells.
I mean, first of all, I don't understand that whole concept of the 60 in a room together, because that's asking on a good day for an issue. Yeah. I mean, my God, if my neighbor was snoring, I mean, I can't even hardly get in the bed with my husband, let alone 59 other men. I mean, can you imagine?
Shut up!
I mean, that's enough to make you shank somebody. That's asking to get shanked.
Well, that was this as far as the snoring, well, it was never a problem in the open. They call them open bay dorms. It was mainly the 2-man cells.
Really?
It was just you.
Well, probably because they could relax.
Yeah, it's just you and one other guy, and he's sawing logs in his sleep, and it's
And
loud.
it keeps you up.
Yeah, you get a lot of.
Well, they're probably not sleeping in that 60-man dorm. I don't think I'd shut my eyes, would you?
One eye open, one eye closed. I'm just saying.
And so the guards just kind of patrol like through the beds just to make sure nobody's doing anything wrong. Like, cause these are crazy things, but not. I could see somebody getting, wanting to have a fight with somebody from earlier. They get near them in the bed, let's just say, sneak over to their bed. They could kill them in the middle of the night. Nobody would even know it. Right?
Well,
Well,
the
that's
rest
where-
of them would know, right?
Yeah,
Because they know what's going down.
and they won't say nothing. So.
But see,
'Cause
they
they
won't
don't
say
snitch.
anything.
But see, a lot of times, what a lot of inmates will do is they don't want the problems in the dorms, or they would take it off camera. If they had a problem, they go handle it in the bathroom because there's no cameras in the showers.
Okay, so that's your big security in that dorm, is there's cameras everywhere.
There's cameras in the dorms, and officers do checks every hour. They have at the end they adopted a pipe system where you have to walk to the back of the dorm and beep the pipe, and it was in the system showing that they were doing their security checks, and that's when they're supposed to go in the dorm and do walk around, make sure everybody's
And you can see them on camera doing their job.
yeah. You can see them on camera doing their job, and
But no cameras in the bathroom.
no cameras in the shower areas. Yeah.
Yes, and that's where.
And that's where it always
That's where
goes
it went
down.
down.
And that's where they go, handle their business.
That's right, yeah.
They call it this. They go get wreck. They call it. So they go fight.
Now, did you like the food where you worked?
I didn't eat that food. I always brought my own food.
You did?
Well, and okay, because this was the thing that I couldn't wait to ask too about. Because there's such thing as prison food, right? Where they buy different things from the canteens
They can buy
and
that.
they make their own stuff.
They make their own stuff. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's-
What was like? What did you see them making? Like
They make anything and everything.
very creative
Yeah.
with it, right?
They call it goulash. They make burritos a lot.
Were they allowed just to go in the kitchen and start cooking?
No,
No,
they cook in their dorms.
they cook it in their dorm, their room.
Did
That's
they
what-
have a Coleman grill in there? I don't
They
understand.
don't.
No, they get creative.
That's what we were talking about with Zach about the whole.
Well, I
it's a
knew
real
he said they
thing.
were cooking like that. They would all buy
Would
groceries
you think
in a
they
way.
have a hibachi in there?
Well, how
Well-
do you do it?
Well, tell us, Thomas.
Well, at first they did have microwaves, but then they had an incident where an inmate zapped water for like out of a long time, and he threw in another inmate's face, and he blinded him.
Oh, my.
And he won a lawsuit. He got millions for that, and so they got rid of all the microwaves. And then they put hot water taps in the dorms, just hot enough to where it'll cook their noodle soups and things like that. And they had hot water, and that's what they would use. Hot water. They use a lot of noodles, refried beans. Like there'll be dehydrated refried beans. Just they get creative. But the craziest thing is when I first started, it was December 2009. I went in the dorm and these guys were having a cake, baking cakes. They were having a contest who had the best cakes. And
they baked in there, right?
They were using honey buns, and they were getting creative. These look like professional
They
cakes.
should do a show on that, like those Food Network shows.
Well, that's what I said. We're gonna have Zach on into a cooking show.
You know what to say?
You and I are gonna bake.
Well, he has to do with ramen noodles.
Well, he said he was gonna make pizza with tortillas or something.
Yeah, they use
where they wet them and put them. Yeah.
They form the crust of the tortillas.
I mean, I guess that's the whole thing that mesmerizes me is, again, just human behavior and what we are capable of doing
To survive.
whether it's inside of a prison or like we talked to Mike, her son-in-law, as
They
a
grew up
veteran.
together.
Yes,
by the way.
as a veteran, and what he had to endure. And at the end of the day, I felt like there were so many similarities,
There were.
believe it or not, between the hierarchy of rank in government and the way you respect
And-
your leader.
And the brotherhood of it all.
Yes.
Right? And there were so many things that were like, oh my gosh.
There were a
because-
lot of similarities, really, in a way. I mean,
good
yes.
guys.
Well,
Exactly.
I was in the military too, and it's just the way it is. I mean, they have certain gangs have their lieutenants. They got their officers. They got the guys calling the shots, and then you got the enforcers, and it's just like that. It's a hierarchy, and that's how a lot of times that's how the dorms are ran. You'll have the big dog in there, and he'll control that dorm. Because if not,
The
the-
shot
Yeah.
caller.
The shot caller.
Shot caller.
Yeah.
yeah, they'll like I said, if you have an inmate in there causing a problem, they'll put him on the door. Basically, they'll pack all his property up, put him by the door, and tell him he needs to get out of there, or else they're gonna beat him up, or
That's
they're
what.
gonna do something
That's
to
what
him.
yeah.
And then that's when they come and they used to come crawling in my office,
Where am I gonna go?
Yeah.
Kind of.
So
thing.
what do you
Cap,
do? So
I
what do
need to clear
you
sight
do?
here.
Do you go try to talk to him, or what do you do?
Or you don't get involved with that, and he's
I just
got to
usually-
go out.
A lot of times to prevent further issues, I would just move them to another dorm, or
Yeah.
if they were, claiming protective custody, I would put them in confinement. But they had to have a legitimate reason to get put into confinement at the time.
So confinement is the shoe,
The shoe, yeah,
right?
special housing unit.
And so were they in a separate building
It was
together or what?
big compounds, yeah, but where I was at, it was separate within the whole compound. It was still there. You could access it. So
But were they by themselves in it? Like
yeah,
a
I mean
cell?
there'd be 2-man cells.
Okay.
So
So they did have
so
a
they
cellmate.
did have a cellmate.
they would have cellmate, but they had to be the same custody level. Like if they're in there for disciplinary, they had to be in there with another guy that was on disciplinary. If someone was protective custody, they had to be with someone else that's protective custody. So you couldn't switch the custody levels.
Got it.
It's
Okay.
there's a lot of regulations and red tape. It sounds like. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as trying to manage it, you know what I mean.
And believe it or not, a lot of these inmates, they have more rights than we do in there.
Right,
You can't-
exactly.
You can like go into a library, they can call it a grievance, and you can get in trouble for that. You can't deny the right to go to the library. Church, you can't deny the right to go to church. So in a way, they got a lot of, like if they close the library here, all I can do is just suck it up and go home, right?
Right,
Who am I going to
right,
complain to?
Right.
Right.
Well, there you had to let them go. I mean, they had certain hours, but
I was just going to ask you that
you
if
can't-
they
you
had
can't
set
deny it.
hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
But you couldn't deny it. They come to the dorm, say, officer, can I go to the library? You give them a pass to go to the library.
Okay. One of the questions I have are about guards. Are not all guards are good guards.
No.
There are some that are dirty guards. Would you say it's equal, or how would you put that? Because some, not all guards are good guards.
No.
Right?
Not everybody has integrity. I always had integrity. And,
Perfect word. Yep.
You know, and yeah, I mean, I think it was at a certain point, it was pretty neck and neck.
Yeah.
You know, at one point, I purposely did it. I knew these two officers were dirty. They were selling cell phones. They were sneaking in cell phones.
How much were they selling them for? Just
It depended on the type of cell phone. I mean, I think there were like cheap knockoff iPhones. I think this one guard, she was selling for $400. And this other guard, he was selling a similar type for $300. You know, so. But I put them in work in the same dorm together one time, just to, you know, just for.
yeah, just to mess with them.
And he would call me and say, "Hey Cap, you know this officer, she's dirty. I don't like working with her. Blah blah blah."
Because she was cutting into his money flow.
Yes, and then like 10 minutes later, she would call me. She's like, "Cap, this guy, he's dirty. I don't like him. Blah blah blah." You know, they were, you know.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah.
Now, what would you do for disciplinary action with that? Like, if you could prove it, would you have to write them up and then all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. If we proved it, you know, a lot of times they would just get escorted off if they got caught with it.
Like
but
suspended for
fired.
a week or
They'll-
fired,
they'll-
immediate
they'll-
termination.
They'll be terminated. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they would be willing to risk that.
Some will. Yeah. Some.
Well,
It's about greed and money.
Yeah. Some people thought that would change their life. You know, but-
And I like the word you use, integrity.
Yeah, I always did the
Right.
right thing. You know, I just couldn't see myself being somebody's do boy, I guess. You know,
Yeah.
like risking my career to sneak in a cell phone. Like I just that's dumb.
yeah.
You know,
Dumb.
$100, $200, that's not going to change my life. You know, and I used to always tell new officers this. I said, if you think $200, $300 is going to change your life, you need to, rethink your financial situation, get that right before because these people, they think that fast money is good money, but they get caught. They possibly can get incarcerated themselves.
Sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
I've had a officer arrested, and Glaze County came and I asked them, please take the mugshot on her uniform, but I don't think they did.
Oh wow.
Oh, that would have
What
been, that would have made us
what was that
safer.
officer doing? If
She's
you don't mind me asking?
bringing in drugs.
She was. It was a lady,
Yeah.
and she was bringing in drugs.
Yeah, we got her. One of my female officers, she kind of had an idea, and she came in, because she would work night shift, and she would come in like at 2 or 3 in the morning. She would always go to her car and then come back in, and that officer said, you know what, I'm going to show up early that day. She was in, I would say she was like the training officer at the time. She said, I'm going to come in early that day, and she got her.
That's good.
Yeah.
How did she caught her? Like at the car getting it, or?
She caught her coming in with it. She could hear the plastic swishing because she had everything wrapped in plastic.
Oh wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean these
That's
a lot
dumb.
of
You're right. Dumb.
a lot of times these inmates will go for women with like low self-esteem. They
And
manipulate
they
them.
know they manipulate them because they can spot them a mile away.
Yeah. They called it downing a duck, and that's what they'll do. They'll find the one, okay. Officer, she looks like she got low self-esteem, or look, this officer's complaining he's always broke, you don't have money, things like that. And a lot of these officers, they talk too much, and these inmates, they
think they're your
always hear 'em.
friend,
And some think they're their friends.
and they are not your friend.
No, I mean, at one point I had to confront an officer because he was telling the inmates business about, me, personal business.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we don't need to do that.
Yeah, well, I went where he was at, and I confronted him about that. Of
Yeah.
course, I had a witness because,
Oh,
I don't know what I'm
smart.
saying, but
Yes.
I brought a fellow sergeant, I addressed that. Like, listen, man, you're getting too personal with these guys. You're telling my personal business, and I don't appreciate that.
And that's gonna stop.
And that's going to stop. And it did.
I have a question.
Downing a duck.
Down on a duck.
Downing a duck.
What is the scariest moment you personally went through while you were in your career? Like, it could have been a one-on-one situation. It may have been a riot situation. Like, for yourself personally, like, oh my gosh, this is not good.
And of course, you can't let them know it.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been scared of inmates. I mean, I've never had a one-on-one situation where I was scared. I think probably the one that freaked me out, I would say, kinda, not so much because I was kind of already 10 years in, but as captain running shift, had an inmate, he just died. Inmate, you watch the whole video. He's coming out of the shower, talking to his friends. I mean, unfortunately, it had all happened on camera. He was talking to his friends. He ran up the stairs, talking to his friends. He reached to open his cell door and just boom,
Heart attack.
cardiac arrest, died on his feet right there. That
Wow.
kind of freaked me out because I was like,
You've
what-
never just
yeah, I'd never experienced it. And I was like,
witnessed
you know,
something.
like,
Mhm.
what
Did
I
they
now?
do an autopsy just to see if he was poisoned or anything, or no? It was
No,
truly
it was-
just a heart attack.
it
I mean,
was
you
heart
could
attack,
tell.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, no, that kind of freaked me out. I was like, oh man, I haven't had that happen before. I mean, I've had them where they were assaulted and they went to the hospital and they died at the hospital, but
Yeah.
with that one, you had to conduct a whole investigation. Glades County came.
Yes.
You know, I showed them the video, and like I said, luckily, I mean,
Thank goodness
it's an
it
unfortunate
was-
situation, but luckily it all happened on camera. You see the whole thing,
Play out.
and it was kind of quick.
Mhm.
But as far as like confrontation, riot situation, I wouldn't scare that stuff.
Now, when there is a riot, like, and I know you said you went out to a place to help them with a riot, or
Yeah, it was in
In
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma?
Yeah.
like it must have lasted for days because you knew.
No, it was a couple hours. What it was, I went for a training.
Okay, I was gonna say, how'd you get out there? Like, oh, there's a riot in Oklahoma. Let me get on the plane
No.
right now and go out there, and it's gonna still be going on.
No, because I was a commander of the RT unit, the Rapid Response Team. I was a commander, and I went out for a training to Oklahoma. And while we were there, a facility had a riot about an hour away, and there's 70 of us there, so we all went there and got it under control.
How do you get it under control? How does that work? Like, what's the process for
Tear
that?
gas, mace.
Chemical agents.
Yeah,
I mean,
chemical
at that
agents,
point, they lost full control. I mean, they were just throwing, grenades, smoke bombs. They have less lethal impact munitions, basically shooting bean bags, or they call them hornet's nests, like rubber, like a lot of little rubber balls and
Like a paintball gun almost.
kind of.
right?
And we had they call it a pepper ball system, which is it looked like a paintball gun, but it had these hard plastic.
Light your butt up.
It would light you up, and it had they called it pava, which is like a fine pepper kind of like chemical agent, and they would choke on that and stuff, and
That's how you kind of get it broken up, though.
yeah, once
Oh,
it
it'll stop you, right?
yeah.
That
and they inmates knew at that certain point if it gets worse than that, then we have the right to use lethal munitions, which is double lot, but
Yeah.
shotgun shells and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
but it didn't get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience anybody escaping prison?
No, luckily
Never.
no. I
Did
would-
you ever find any tunnels or anything?
She's interested over the tunnel thing.
I know. Hey, I love that. What was that show I used to watch it on TV with the Prison Break?
Prison Break.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they would build all kinds of elaborate tunnel. I mean, it was like a big thing, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
nobody dug any tunnels in
No.
Moorhaven?
that we know of.
I don't think it would be possible. I mean, it's because it was all concrete,
Concrete,
in
right.
there, and they didn't have much rec space, and you constantly have perimeter. They called it a perimeter vehicle watching the rec road and stuff. So someone's out there digging tunnels. It'd be hard to do
Yeah.
there. But some facilities, yeah, it's possible.
Yes.
And another question, I have a few more, but so in your opinion, is everyone that is incarcerated, whether it be in Moorhaven where you worked or wherever, do you think they were all guilty of the crime that they were sentenced for?
I would say no. I'm sure there's some that got in there that were innocent. And a lot of times, like I said, some had money for representation, some didn't. A lot of times these guys get a public defender, and in my opinion, public defender didn't do much for them. They just, they're just a number. Get them in there.
They're just doing their job to get their paycheck.
Yep, and get them a plea deal, get them out of here, which they don't really, by them having money to buy a lawyer, the lawyer would actually, go that little extra mile to prove their innocence. And I think a lot of times that's how a lot of people end up in there because they don't have the financial,
Do you
resource.
think it's about filling the beds for the business?
I think so. Some cases, yeah.
That was the most interesting thing to me, and was a light bulb moment when we interviewed Zach. For me, because I'd never really thought of the business end of it, that when he talked about they had to fill the beds, and I'm like, holy crap, for me, that was big.
Yeah,
Well, I just can't imagine. No, and I get it, but I'm like thinking, I don't feel like it would be hard to fill the beds, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't
Yeah,
think it
I
is
know,
with
I
as
don't
much
know.
crime that's going on out
Especially
there.
nowadays, right? Or probably all
But do you
days.
think that came from privatizing the prisons? Like, because when they became privatized, like maybe then it's more of a business. I'm gonna give you a good example. I'm in healthcare myself, and I can definitely see a difference. I can name a practice that used to be a privately owned practice. Everything was great, blah blah blah. Then they become part of a network of managed care or an ACO where they get an incentive back if they really make sure that they're what's the word, looking after the health care, like watching the dollars, basically. And I get that in a way, but it's kind of like what is really driving the doctor at that point? Is it truly trying to watch the dollars, or is it the more dollars you save, the more dollars that are going in your pocket? Like, so the privatization, I have a little bit of an issue with sometimes, because I do feel like it incentivizes people to look out for their own personal interests.
Gain your own personal.
And I mean, I get it in a certain degree. So that's why I'm asking about the prisons, because is it more like for the private companies that own them, or
to keep the beds full.
Yeah, I think there it plays a part in that. I think they get a certain amount a day per inmate, so
Correct.
they want to try to keep their numbers somewhat up. So
And then, like, one thing that Zach spoke about too was the coffee, Keefe's or whatever,
Yeah.
like the brand for the coffee, and you have these companies, and so they get so much per inmate for supplying the foods, the coffee, the tea, the whatever it is,
yeah.
and so you've got all of those things involved in keeping all those beds filled to keep that money flow going.
Yeah, those companies that sell stuff out of the canteen, they're making a killing.
A killing.
They're making a killing. And when they got rid of cigarettes, I know that was a problem because they were losing millions and millions of dollars because of cigarettes.
Because of cigarettes.
They cut out cigarettes, and it was an issue. But those companies, like, they make a lot of money. One bag of coffee is like $10. It was probably more now.
yeah,
Yeah.
At the time, it was like $10, and
Right.
tuna and coffee were like the most expensive things. They would use that for money and money.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy in a way if you think about it, because I think about like us as Floridians or anywhere there's a natural disaster, how we have the Attorney General, I think that's what they're called, that looks out for price gouging, gas during a storm. In a way, that's almost the same thing. I mean, granted, okay, they're in prison, but you're also taking advantage and charging highway robbery for those things to somebody that you're almost asking for them to do things illegally to get the money to get the coffee. If you're in prison, you're not working. How can you afford that? I mean,
Well,
at
they
least
do
just
have
charge.
jobs, though, right?
At least
Some
just
do.
charge normal prices.
They don't get paid in the state prison.
No, but a lot of inmates, they have their little hustle they do. Like, some do tattooing. We catch them doing tattooing.
Exactly, but
yeah.
it creates a
It creates
behavior
little side hustles, yeah.
of not doing things legally.
So it's a whole world within.
If you think about it,
It's a whole
Right.
different world, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll have inmates who clean other inmates' cells for money, A lot of laundry orderlies, they'll bleach their whites for a couple.
which again is human nature. Hey, you want to do it? I got the money. I'm gonna pay you to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the part about the coffee or whatever, that kind of aggravates me a little bit, because that's to me almost, this is just my own personal opinion, taking advantage of somebody. Like, it's almost like us as a hurricane victim.
Well, yeah, but I was talking
Well, and I know you
more-
shouldn't use the word victim, but in a way, okay, they're doing their punishment. So don't gouge them for doing
But
their
I was
punishment.
talking about the ones that supply it for when they go to eat their meal, if they get a cup of coffee, or the supplier of whatever,
the whole cafeteria
loaf
thing.
of breads, whatever,
No, in the cafeteria, they eat free out of their dorms. They get three hot meals a
Yeah,
day.
but
Right.
you're saying that Zach was saying that there's money behind it. There's like
Behind
the
it's driven.
companies that are selling it.
Yeah, that are suppliers of food, of canteen products, of whoever. So you want to keep your beds filled in order to keep being able to supply. So instead of sending 100 pounds of coffee to give the inmates to drink, you know, you have the potential of sending 200 pounds of coffee. So you want to keep the beds
But I think
full
where
to
Zach
that,
was
right?
going with that is that it was
I don't think
politicians that were
Right.
behind the coffee company.
Exactly.
That was the whole
That was
catch
it.
on that.
Because I don't
Right.
think they can really control that.
Yeah, no.
The prison really can't control that type of stuff. I mean, they can't,
That's where I
they
think
can't
he was going.
force
Yeah,
them,
no,
so.
it was.
But they just try to keep
totally.
their numbers at a certain level.
Exactly.
Like we average around between 980 and 990.
That's what I'm saying. You got to keep the numbers
You gotta keep
there.
the numbers up. Never over 1,000. So
So, and I know we can ask you 1,000 questions. I apologize. I feel like we're like the firing squad.
Because we
of
are,
just
because
questions.
it's so interesting.
But my one last question. Well, I have two. And I've already lost my first one.
Well.
Wait a second, because it was something kind of good.
Would you
Shoot.
want me?
Talking about coffee and supply and demand. Oh, staffing. Because I know you said staffing could be an issue. And Lord knows we can understand that.
Yes,
Again,
'cause
working
it's in
and you
our
have to
world.
meet a certain quota of numbers and blah, blah,
For
blah.
the state, and
Yep.
we,
yeah, per the contract, you couldn't have under, I believe, can't remember. I think it was 16 officers. You can't have under 60 on day shift. And night shift was a certain number too.
Yes. So what
So a
would
lot-
happen when you would get in a
When you were
critical,
short.
would other prisons share staff? I mean, literally what happens if you can't meet the number? I mean, like, okay, they did not come. I've called everybody I know.
Yeah, a lot of times you'd have to hold people over sometimes.
Okay.
okay.
And that's where some people would get a lot of overtime.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
That's how,
That's how a lot of these people would develop relationships. You know, you're working.
Exactly, because you're there.
I've seen people work 16-hour days, 7 days a week. You know,
Yeah.
you're there more than you are at home. You know.
that's right.
That's right.
And but yeah, staffing we'd usually hold people over. We can only hold them over 4 hours, and you know, it couldn't be over 16 because we're doing 12-hour shifts. So
It's a lot like healthcare,
It's
like
like
hospitals,
yeah,
nursing
totally.
home, same kind of thing.
So in the meantime, you had 4 hours to call around and get a couple volunteers to come in early, and luckily you had a nice little group of people who always they love that overtime. So
And they came through, yeah.
And they came through,
It's same like just like healthcare.
Just like healthcare. Well,
and if it got real critical, we would activate the rapid response team, and they would come and work shift. But a lot of times they didn't answer their phone, so that.
Okay. Well, I want to give you a moment to talk about the veteran thing that you were talking to us about earlier that you help implement right there in Moorhaven. And I know that was really important. So I want you to talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in Moorhaven, you know, they try to have a lot of programs to keep the inmates busy, and you know, a lot of times it keeps them out of trouble. And one idea, you know, since me being a veteran was, hey, let's start a Legion. We started a Legion post at the facility, and we created a veterans dorm. And you know, they had to be, to get in the dorm, you had to first prove you're a veteran. They had to have a DD-214, which they provided a DD-214, or we even allowed sons of veterans too, because you know,
Okay.
and basically to get in the dorm, you couldn't be a troublemaker. You had to have, you know, just be a model inmate, as you would say. When they got in the dorm had to stay clean at all times. Everybody had to wake up at 5:30. Wake up. They had to get up and they had to make their bunks. And you know, a lot of guys, they took it seriously because for one, they enjoyed the dorm because you know it was quiet, it was clean,
and they had a sense of pride.
They had a sense of pride in what they did, and you know, and you know, it worked out great. You know, a lot of these guys, they did what they're supposed to do, and if there was a bad apple in there,
Out.
they would tell them.
They get their stuff and throw it out.
Not necessarily, but they say, Captain, this guy's not a good fit for the dorm. He's doing this. He's creating problems with this guy. And
So they were kind of like a good gang, if you want to call it that or whatever.
Well,
like
good
a way.
brotherhood,
yeah, I'd say
right?
like it's like a brotherhood.
It's
you
like
know,
a brotherhood.
Some would get along, but then you know some would be too overbearing and cause problems. You know, so
Yeah, I would want to be in that dorm. I feel like that would be the safest dorm.
it was. You know, they had 2 TVs in there. You know, they had extra TV where they can watch movies, and they had the general pop TV where they they watch what everybody else is watching, and they had a couple little privileges to
But
be in
that's
that dorm.
good.
And it worked. A lot of those guys, they really enjoyed it. They did their and they had to be involved in something too to be in there, not just the Legion, but they had to be involved in another program. And a lot of guys would volunteer at the chapel, or they'd be orderlies in classrooms and things like that. So it worked.
Well, I think that's great, and it got the veterans together,
It did,
and we support that.
Yes.
I totally support that 1,000,000%. So that was a good idea. Do other prisons have anything of that nature?
I think
in
some
it?
do. There's quite a few. I think they have a Legion too. So
What's the difference between the South Bay prison and Moorhaven? Size?
size, and they have some lifers there.
Okay,
Yeah.
in South Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have a higher custody level. So they get a lot of times we have guys, they close their custody, they transfer them out they have to go to South Bay. And that, like I said, is a higher level and more inmates. It's bigger.
Gotcha.
Got you. Well,
One last question.
you thought of it?
No, well, it was just going to be my last question. Do
Okay.
you miss working there? Or do you miss it?
At first I enjoyed it, it was a lot of, it was a lot of guys, and we've had a, good brotherhood. We did our job with integrity. That a lot of people lost that after a while, but change happens, and
It's
in my
time to
opinion,
go.
it didn't change for the good, and I enjoyed it. I was good at it. But do I miss it? Not really.
And do you
It's a
think-
whole different world. So
And different crimes and different, I think people are becoming more and more violent.
yeah, it's always been a violent place, but that place it had gotten more violent. Yes.
Yeah.
At first it was a prison where everybody wanted to finish their sentence. They'd go to Moorhaven and finish their sentence.
Because it was
It was,
Right.
it was 5 years and under, but then it ended up changing. They kept adding, different psych levels because they would get more money. So and after that, it just changed, and it was just time for me to, I found a better opportunity at the ICE facility, so I transferred to Broward Transition Center. And
Now, were you driving every day from here?
yeah, it was about an hour and 20 minutes to Pompano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't bad. I don't mind the driving.
Yeah.
But I just eventually, my wife and I talked, and one thing you don't get back is time.
Yep.
I was losing a lot of time. The boys were
Yep.
graduating high
Absolutely.
school, and man, where did time go? And
You got that little girl.
yeah, and,
Bella.
Bella.
Yeah, Bella's
Yes,
sweet little self. So
I
cute.
know. I love all
Yeah.
the stuff that Amanda posts.
Oh, no, I do
Yes.
too.
Yes.
so we figured, family, spend
That's
more time with
right.
family,
It's
and
priority.
it's priority, and I don't regret it. It's
Well,
enjoy it.
I always say, no matter what our profession is to me, there's two things that you don't mess with when it comes to people and their jobs, and that is your paycheck, because we're working to make money, to
Yeah.
have a nice
Yes.
life with our family,
Right.
and two, their time off. Like if you
Yeah.
can possibly accommodate somebody's request for time off for vacation that they've earned, don't mess around with things like that as an employer, because those are the two things we work to have quality of life
Yeah.
with our families and time. And
Absolutely.
it's not really that hard of a situation if you work with people on that. Even time off during the holiday season, we're in healthcare, or even when you're in the prison, that's prime time. Everybody wants to be off, but if you let everybody have a stake in it and pick and choose and do it together, people look out for
We'll
each
be
other and help
happier
them.
and
You
more
know.
balanced. I
Yeah.
See,
think.
when I was in Moorhaven, I had a calendar, and it was first come, first serve. You put in a request, we approve it. You had a certain window where you could put it in. If they were approved, they had their time off. That's one thing I never try to bother anybody with,
Good.
that time off.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Because that's important, is what
Yeah.
we're
It
saying.
is.
Like, so you're right. At the
Well,
end of the
it's a
day, listen,
balance.
it's all about quality of life and time with our families. I literally worked in healthcare years and years ago, where I was a lot like you in a more of a management position. And I tell everybody to this day, let me flip burgers somewhere, because at the end of the day, I don't care how much money they were willing to pay me. It wasn't even about the money at that point. It was about my mental health and my quality of time with my family.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, if you're not enjoying life, what are we living for?
Not just that, it'll affect your job too. You know, a lot
Yes,
of people come
that's
in
true.
there and they'll be,
And you got to make split decisions, and you got to be on your game
Mm-hmm.
for what you did. Well, Thomas, we can't thank you enough.
I know. I feel
This
like
is
we've
so-
been the firing
We
squad.
have been. We've been.
We're like
Rapid
questions.
fire.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed being here
I
talking
did. I enjoyed it.
with
It was
us.
a good time.
Well,
Bring
we-
back memories, you know. But,
Well, we appreciate it, because,
Yes, we
you know,
do.
it's interesting to us because we've never been on the inside of those walls as an employee, or knock on wood, I
Thank
don't
the
ever want to
Lord.
get in there. I need to go get my vet. I need to become a veteran. If I do, I'm going in that one. I don't know. Because I
Yes.
just don't ever want to be on the inside.
Yeah.
I just like to talk to people that have.
But we find it
Nobody
very
does.
interesting.
It
I
is
think
very interesting.
People find it very interesting, whether you've never been in it, thank goodness, or you have been, because it is a good conversation that we don't really know anything about.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a
we-
different world.
we appreciate you.
Thank you so
taking
much.
time
Yeah, thank you,
out,
especially
talking
from
to
your
us.
family tonight. So thank you for
Yes,
that.
thank
You're probably
you.
starving
You're
because
probably
you came
starving.
straight from an event.
I'm good.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, and yeah, you'll have to come back and we talk about ICE.
Especially right now
Yes,
with the
that's-
immigration and all
that's a
that.
hot
Good.
topic.
That is a hot topic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hot pockets. Hot topics. Yeah.
Oh,
All right, everybody. Well, our time has run out.
Yes, it's time to go.
So, thank
Yes.
you so much for being with us again for another episode. Like I said, we've missed you guys. We're glad to
Oh,
be back.
Totally missed
And
it.
until next week,
Like us,
love us
share,
and care
and be kind.
and be kind.
Be kind.
Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
Don't get locked up either.
Yeah.
I'm so scared that I said that next week I will be the one behind bars.
No.
Bye.
Bye.